Alright, welcome back to another Vim video, and in this video we are going to talk about the concept of mapping some keystroke to some command, of mapping some sequence of key presses to something else, and that something else, sorry, cat hair everywhere, that something else could be a terminal command or it could be another sequence of keystrokes in Vim. So essentially it's just one way of saying like either to put something in your configuration file, in other words in your vimrc file, or just to construct something on the fly where you say that whenever I press this combination of keystrokes, this thing will happen. And I mean, in some sense, this is probably, it's kind of like I alluded to in the last video, Vim motions plus this sort of capability or this sort of power is fantastic. Like that's in my mind sort of half of Vim. It gets you super far. So we'll look a bit at the help page, but I think maybe let's just start with looking at how I use this, right? So I essentially just use this for like truly mainly almost only for running the current file through a interpreter or a compiler, right? So that when I'm writing code, I'll just look at the output of that code. And I've tried before to put stuff into my vimrc file and sort of have these sort of standardized keystrokes where like this combination means run and this combination means compile or such and such, right? But I find that it's just it doesn't make any sense to me, right? It's so easy to construct a mapping, maybe I should call it, or like a key binding, probably I should call it. So it's better to just do it on the fly, right? Because then you don't have to remember anything, because you can arbitrarily come up with your key binding, and it's like whenever you just open up Vim, depending on what environment you're in, you just map the keystroke, and then it's super flexible because I mean, you might have something that's different in this particular scenario, and then you don't have to worry about sort of handling that particular exception in your vimrc file. But anyways, I've been talking way too much junk now, so let's jump into it. So let's look at a few examples, right? Like let's say, I think we mentioned this last time as well. Like let's say I'm running Ruby, for example. Like let's do a few of these, right? So let's say I'm running Ruby and I have this small file here. Actually, let me just jump back out of here and show you that I'm just in this empty directory that doesn't actually contain anything. But now I'll construct the file main.rb, right? So maybe this program just says hello world. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like, let's say 10 times. Actually, this is stupid. Let's say three times do puts hello world, right? So that's our program. I save that file. You can notice here it's saying, okay, main.rb. That's a new file. Okay, so now I can run a command, right? Notice down here, right down in the bottom, we have this colon thing, right? So I'm specifying some command, and the thing is that from here, you can say, like whenever you run a command here, you'll run a command within Vim. But if you precede that command with a bang, then that means that it's called bang, this symbol, right? Like exclamation mark or exclamation point, right? Let's say bang, right? So if you precede it with a bang or prepend the bang to it, then you'll run that thing in the terminal, right? So it's like, if you say bang something, then Vim will be backgrounded, as we talked about last time, and then that command will be ran. So if you say bang echo foobar, let's say, right, then echo foobar will be run in your terminal. So if I hit enter now, oh sorry, I forgot about installing this thing that will show you my keystroke. Sorry, next time, I promise. Okay, but here you can see we get foobar out, right? And just to emphasize this, what I can do, for example, is that if I not just run this, but if I start this with, let's say, clear and then and so this is bash, right? This has nothing to do with Vim. Actually, let me show you that. If I background this and say clear here, of course, then I'm clearing the screen. And if I say clear and echo foobar, then I'll first clear and then I'll echo foobar, right? Notice how sort of the prompt disappears, right? Because if I just said echo foobar, then I'll just get foobar out. But if I say clear and, I'll get this, right? And this you might already know, right? But you can say and, or you can say or. No, wait, or? Yeah, I think it's or. That seems... No, yes, of course, right, or. So if you say and, that means that the last command, or the first command, the next command will only be run if the last command successfully succeeded, right? So there's standard error, right? So I think it's something like actually it's probably something related to exit code. So if the last program, or if the leftmost program in this sort of combination, or in this sort of binary expression, if the leftmost program fails, right? So exits with an exit code that stands for false, which I think is probably like 1 instead of 0. Don't quote me on this, okay? But if that program fails, essentially, right, then the next program won't be run. I can't really... Yeah, since I don't know this in detail, I'm not going to attempt to show you this now. Maybe we could look at that some other time if you're interested in that. But anyways, my point was that what you can, if you say and, that means only run the next command if the previous command succeeded, right? But if you say or, then it's like, well, disregarding what the last command did, whether that failed or not, let's just run this next command anyways, right? So and is usually, I mean, it makes sense. I tend to use and all the time, because then you know sort of that you're expressing a chain of sort of successful commands. So for example, if you would do something like first compile, right? Compile and then run. You wouldn't want to say, oops, you wouldn't want to say or run, right? Because then it's like, well, maybe you're running an old file if the compilation failed, but then you're not looking at the output of the output errors from that compilation. So then it's even more important that you say and, right? Because you actually want to see the errors, and you don't want to run because you want to sort of interact with the compilation errors. But anyways, now we're talking about bash, right? So if I'm back into Vim, right? So what I'm just emphasizing is that you can either express run commands in Vim here, or you could run commands in your terminal, right? So just to emphasize that you can do stuff in Vim here as well. Like I could say, if I don't precede this command with a bang, I could say maybe normal, and then let's say maybe I mean, if I'm here, right? Notice the cursor is at the end of the line. If I press K and then K, then I'm jumping up 2 lines, right? So if I'm at the end and I say normal KK, yeah, then when I press enter, that means that it's as if I pressed K 2 times, right? So Vim is very fantastic in that sense, in that there's so little magic, right? It's like you can actually just reason about what happens, because when you say normal here, it's not like you have to specify a bunch of different commands. It's like, if I say normal, I'm saying execute the following keystrokes in the normal mode, right? So that's like, it's very, very intuitive. Like sometimes, maybe, I don't even want to say most of the time, a lot of the times Vim is very intuitive. A lot of the other times Vim just wants you, or makes you want to slap yourself, right? But anyways, that's a completely different story. But so why am I talking about this? So normal, yeah. So you can execute stuff that has to do with Vim, right? And one command that is a Vim command is map. So map is this thing where you can say something here, and then space, and then something here. And what you'll do is that you'll map this first combination of keys to the second combination of keys. So for example, right, notice how we just did. If I was at the bottom of the file, and if I pressed KK, I go up, right? So what I could do is I could say normal KK, right? And that would put me at the top, right? Because it's sort of jumping me up, right? And if I go down to the bottom again. But what I could do is I could say, let's say map comma L, for example. I'm just choosing a random, it's not really random, I tend to use comma L, right? But some combination of keys. And if so when I press comma L, I want to send the following keystrokes to Vim, colon, because it's a command that I'm going to run. Actually, it's I was going to say normal and then KK. That's stupid. I don't have to do that. What I could do is I could just say, when I press comma L, send the keystrokes KK, right? So I'm pressing enter to say that this command now exists, okay? Supposedly it now exists. So if I say map and then comma L and then nothing more, I'm just going to ask, what is this? What is the command that is mapped to comma L? Actually, let me make the font size a bit bigger because we're here in the bottom. This is going to make me go insane. Okay, but anyways, if I just say map comma L now, I'm asking what is the thing that's currently mapped to comma L, and then you can see, ooh, font size is too big. Let me go down a bit. So let me try that again. Yeah, okay, but it says KK is mapped to that, right? Let me see if this actually works. If I press comma L now, yep, da-da-dum, I'm at the top of the file. Now this is a completely useless mapping, right? Because it's like, I don't really know what you would use this for, right? Because like you could, it is just it's easier to press KK, right? But like you could map a bunch of stuff. Like you could map something on the fly that, let's say, probably let's say we have this, right? Let's say puts this line, let's say, right? And we want to switch places of these lines, right? So it's like I want to take this line and then move it upwards, right? I could sort of record a macro. Actually, macros is something we should talk about in this series. I'll talk about macros in another time. But I guess what I could also do is just I could highlight this line, delete it, go one up, and then paste above. Right, so I've never tried this before, so let's just see if this actually works. So let's map something to the same keystroke and then do that. So I would say, well, capital V to highlight the line, and then D to delete it. I'm not sure if this is gonna work. Let's see. I have never tried. So this is not the way I'm using mappings, right? Why did I start in the wrong end? Let's just finish this thought and then we'll go back, right? So if I deleted it and then I'm going to have to go up one step, and then I'm going to have to paste above, right? So something like that. So if I now press the combination, that actually worked, right? Right? So then you can see it's super easy to, in your Vim RC file, in your config file, map, pick any freaking combination on your keyboard, right? And then make yourself a fantastic shortcut for the things that you're using like all the time, right? So notice how simple that was. We just it was sort of extremely intuitive. We just say, well, whenever I press this particular thing, I want to send this particular combination of keystrokes, and this particular combination of keystrokes could be like absolutely insanely complicated, right? And it would still work, right? And again, but what I wanted to show you why we are in Ruby is that what I tend to use this for is I tend to do this. So in Ruby, I tend to say map, and then I tend to map this particular keystroke. The reason I map (L), right, is that I probably got this from Gary Bernard that I talked a bit about in the last video, but that's because it's just extremely close, right? And it's very easy to get that combination right and not accidentally hit another one. So I tend to map sort of (L), dot, K, and (M). I'll probably start with (L) and (M), right? Because it's like this and like this, like down and up and down and left, right? Actually, maybe comma is in a different place on your keyboard. I have no idea. Maybe that's probably in the same place in all keyboards. Anyways, pick whatever you like, right? But I tend to use those keystrokes, but I tend to map them to different things all the time, right? But (L) is sort of my go-to, right? So (L), and then I want to run a command, so I'll say send : right? Because colon is what you press in Vim in order to send the command, in order to get this command prompt down in the bottom, right? Down here in the bottom, right? You press colon to get that command prompt. So what I tend to do is I tend to say map this keystroke to saying run a command, begin with bang, because I want to run something in the shell, and then run Ruby, and then $, which means pass this particular file, right? So that's sort of a, I don't know, variable? Magic variable? So here there was a bit of magic. I don't know how to search for that in help. Actually, let's go help $. Wow, now I really need a smaller font. Oh my god. Okay. Yeah, sorry, I have to have a smaller font. I can't read this. So wait, like so, okay. So various motions, percentage, no, this is the motion $. That's not actually what I'm looking for. So maybe, can I say help like this? Yes, no, no, that's not it either. Yeah, so we'll figure that out another time. Yeah, okay. Special characters, command line special. Okay, these are special characters in the executed command line. I'm just reading the documentation now, right? If you want to insert special things while typing, you can use the Control-R command. For example, percentage. For example, percentage stands for the current file name, while Control-R percentage inserts the current file name right away. Okay, so right. So if I'm running a command down here, right, I'm typing out a command. If I just say percentage, then whenever I execute this command, that percentage sign will be replaced with the file name. but if I press Control R and then say percentage, it will immediately show up, right? It'll expand to that file name immediately. And now we were actually we get the file path to the documentation file. But yeah, we'll talk a bit more about that in just a moment, right? Let me close that. And yes, so what I tend to do is I say map, where were we? Comma L, colon sign, space, colon sign, bang, and then Ruby. We want to run something through Ruby, and we want to run the current file through Ruby. What happened to my space key? Okay, like that. Then there's another special character, right? Which is this, control, right? So this, I think, is the same thing as enter, and some more stuff. Let's look at that immediately. So let's say help, control, or carriage return, I think this is for, right? So control, yeah, so CR, you can see here in the beginning of the lines, count lines down. No, line-wise, no, this is not the same. That's not what I was looking for. Let's search for that again. CR. Wait a minute, I'm pretty sure I saw this. I've looked at this before. What did I search for it? Yeah. So if I do this, because that's not what we are looking for. This can't be repeat, blah, 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 map. Let's search for enter. So help, and then enter. Yes, here. This is what I was looking for. I wonder how I should have searched in order to end up here. If you're better at sort of exploring the Vim documentation than I am, please do guide me in this search of how I should have searched, because it's sort of, sometimes this documentation is kind of freaking me out. But anyways, here you can see enter, right? So they're saying you can use the notation less than, enter, greater than, and that's the same as less than or CR for carriage return, and that's essentially going to send enter, right? It's like that's the way of expressing hitting the enter key, right? Because the issue is, of course, that when we're being this explicit, right? When we're saying, well, map, comma L, it's like I'm not using some special syntax in order to talk about comma. I'm just saying like an actual comma. So how would I say an actual enter? Like to say an actual enter, I have to hit enter, but then that's going to run the command, right? So that's why we need a special syntax for some of these things, like, for example, enter. For example, tab is like this as well, I believe. But anyways, okay. What were we saying? Map, comma L to bang, colon bang, Ruby, current file, and then carriage return, right? It doesn't matter if you do capital or not capital, right? So that means, of course, I have to press enter as well. Like, we have to really think literally. It's like, actually, let's show this. If I don't do carriage return, what happens is that, so I pressed enter in order to say that I want to store this mapping in memory. And then if I say map, comma L, just to ask what's mapped to comma L currently, you can see I get back this, right? What's mapped is this. It's colon, bang, Ruby, percentage sign, okay? So let me try to hit that. If I hit comma L now, right? I'm hitting comma L. Then you can see we got up the command prompt and it entered bang, Ruby, space, percentage sign, but then nothing happened, right? Because it didn't press enter. So if now I have to manually press enter, manually press enter, bam, and then it's running the file, right? But since I know that I want to do that, I could have just said map comma L to colon bang Ruby, percentage sign, and then carriage return, right? Also press enter, of course, because that's the command that you've now entered. Or the command that you've now entered, I actually want to run that, right? And now let's press comma L. Boom, right? We're running this file. We get hello world, and then we get this particular, this line thing that we had. Maybe let's remove that, and let's just say that we put hello world 3 times, right? So yeah, actually maybe let's put that up here instead, okay? So we run the file, we get this divider, and then we get hello world 3 times. Now, let's do this. You could even maybe say, oh, this is too difficult to read. So let's clear the screen before we do that. So now we're mapping comma L to colon bang, meaning send a command, like the background Vim, and send this command to the terminal. The command I'm sending is clear the screen, and then if that was successful, run the current file through the Ruby interpreter. Or actually type in Ruby space the percentage sign, which is this particular file, or the path to this particular file, and then press enter, right? Okay, let's run that. Let's do that. I'm hitting comma L. It's clearing the screen. All the other junk was gone, and then it ran the program, and now we're looking at the output, right? And conveniently it's saying press enter or type command to continue, right? So I'll press enter, or any key actually, and I'm back in Vim, right? Like extraordinarily simple, right? And so now I don't have a test here, and I don't want to sort of jump into RSpec, but what you could do is, of course, you could say map some other keystroke. Actually, the comma period is what I use a lot also. Maybe that's actually, yeah, sorry, I said comma M, but I probably use comma L and comma period most of the time. But anyways, then maybe you would do something like this, right? It's like RSpec, either the current file, or maybe you could even do that. Like, let's just say RSpec, you map one keystroke to RSpec, and then you map another keystroke to, so RSpec, if you're not familiar with Ruby, is a test runner of in Ruby, right? So it's something that you can use to run your tests, which is like, if you're from C#, it's like similar to XUnit or NUnit, or I'm sorry, I don't actually know. XUnit is used in Java land? Maybe, I'm not sure, whatever. And then you map another keystroke, like comma M, for example, to running, let's say, RSpec on, did I say the specific file or not before? What did I map to comma period? Yeah, just RSpec, right? So then maybe you map RSpec on this particular file to another key, right? So now we have three mappings. One is run the particular file, one is run just RSpec, right? Which probably runs like RSpec in the current folder, which probably means then all tests. And then you run RSpec, and then we have another command which runs RSpec on this particular file, right? So which runs like the particular test file that we're in, right? And again, like you could put that in your Vim configuration and standardize that so that you have the same keystrokes all the time. Maybe you're the kind of person who appreciates that. In my opinion, that just seems like an unnecessarily complicated way of doing it, right? It's like, this is almost free. It's like, now you can use this like the shortest possible keystroke that you can hit to whatever is convenient at that given point in time, right? So let me show you something else, right? If we save and quit now, okay, let me clear the screen. Let's look at what's here, right? So actually, let me just do ls, right? So we just have this file main.rb here. What if, let's say, so recently I've been working a lot in R, for example, right? So let's say we have this other file. Let me just create this file. Let's call it some script.r, let's say, right? So now we have two files. Actually, why do I do, oof, I meant to do just this. No, can I get, yeah, anyways, okay. So we have we have a script file here, and we have the main RB file. The script file is empty, but let's jump into Vim and let's open up the script.r file. So notice I quit Vim and then I reopen it. So now if I ask what's mapped under, let's say, comma L, for example, it's going to say no mapping found, right? Just as it does if I say what's under the map, blah, like this arbitrary bunch of keystrokes, or this arbitrary collection of keystrokes. It's saying no mapping found, right? But there are a bunch of mappings constructed by, for example, the plugins that I happen to be using at this particular moment. I'm hesitating to show you that because I have a totally messy vimrc file, and my intention was to, or I'm actually in the process of cleaning that up before we get to the point where I actually show my vimrc. But I think if we just say map, let's try this. Yeah, it's actually showing all the mappings that I currently have active on this system, right? And here you can see it's from this plugin called Nerd Commenter, for example, and so forth, right? But probably here somewhere there are some mappings that I've constructed myself in the vimrc file. Yeah, so here, for example, this is a silly map. Oh, here, for example, right? So this is a mapping such that when I press Control and then right, or Control and up, and so forth, I'm going to send Control W followed by Control L, right? So actually, L, yeah, L. So that's in order to, for example, when I have splits, right? So let's say we have this split. Right? We have three splits here. So that means I can press Control and then left and Control and then right in order to move between these. Whereas if I didn't do that, like the original, the Vim default behavior for this is to press Control W and then Control H for left, Control W and then Control H. And actually I said left and right, but I do have a mapping which is Control L, right? And Control H, like I don't actually, I don't know really why this, so this is why I'm saying I need to clean up my vimrc, right? Because in the bottom here, right, there's this mapping to, or of control right and control up, but I actually think I have a mapping for, let me just check that. I think I have a mapping for control H. Yeah, so it's also mapped to HJKL, right? Because that's the way I actually use it. And as you can see here in this list of mapping, I've even mapped, like, this is from way back when I learned Vim, right? It's like, I talked to a friend who knew a lot more about Vim, and I sort of said, I actually find it really difficult not to use the arrow keys, and I'm just assuming that it would be much faster if I stopped using the arrow keys. And he's like, just unmap the arrow keys, just take them away, right? So this is like, I've mapped down and up and right and left arrow keys to no op, right? To no operation. So if I press up and down and right the arrow keys, they do nothing essentially, right? Actually, here it wouldn't do anything because I don't actually have any text, but I mean, if I press HJKL, right, you can see I'm moving around now. But if I press up and down on left and right, nothing happens, right? Because I've mapped them to doing absolutely nothing. Now, that's, who cares? that's a bit, potentially a bit overkill, but I mean, in the beginning, if you do have the time to learn Vim, I think that would actually probably make sense, right? Because it's like, honestly now, like truly honestly, maybe that sounds like a strange thing to say, but truly honestly, I don't think about the fact that I don't use the arrow keys until I sort of actively think about the fact that I don't use the arrow keys, right? In Vim, it's actually like, for some time it's awkward, but then after a while it disappears. Like, it's not awkward anymore. Anyways, this is not what we're going to talk about. Where are we actually? So we were talking about, yeah, since we've opened up a new instance of Vim, we now don't have the old mappings that we had before, and then we had a brief look at the mappings that currently exist in my system from, for example, plugins that I don't use, but let's talk about that when we get to that point. So we're now in an R file, right? So I don't know, like we have, like, let's make this R script, right? So let's say we have this vector of people, that's like, it's John and it's Jane, and it's Jazz maybe, right? Like Jazz and Jeff, okay. And then let's say we just say people in order to output that to screen, for example, right? Or actually, let's build something more sensible, right? Let's say age, or actually, so instead of people, maybe we should say name and then name here, right? So age, let's say, John is 20, Jane is 30, and Jazz is 40, okay? And then maybe let's create a data frame of these names and ages. This completely doesn't matter, right? But it's like stuff that you would do in R. Okay. Now, if I would background this again, like, let's list the files. Actually, let's list the files like this. You know that we have main RB, the Ruby file, and then we have the R script file. Now, in order to run that through R script, I would say R script. Actually, I think it's like this, R script, right? R script with the capital R, and then I'll pass the script, okay? If I do that, you can see we get this data frame as output. So data frame is kind of like a table, but it's like the way you store observations. Like R is a language for statistical computation. But anyways, you can see, I mean, it's running that, right? I mean, obviously we can't pass that script to Ruby, right? I mean, but this is a silly thing to say. Anyways, you can see, this is how we execute the file. Okay, so that's the thing that we want to map to a keystroke, right? So then I'll use exactly the same mapping, like exactly mapping to, I'll map to exactly the same keystroke because that's an extremely convenient keystroke. So I'll just say map, L to colon, bang, R script, this particular file with a percentage sign, and I'll just say carriage return, right? I'll save this command. Let's look and make sure that this command is entered. I'll say map and then L. You can see, okay, well, L is mapped to bang or colon bang R script, this particular file, and then carriage return. Okay, so if I press L now, that's run. That's being run, right? And again, let's say I could even actually do this. I could say clear the screen and then do that. Okay, we get that output. So super convenient. So now we can work in Ruby, and then it's like 2 seconds later we've switched. It's done. 2 seconds later. Okay, to be fair, like what? 15 seconds later. Okay, so 15 seconds later we've switched to R. right? It's not like, oh, I have to open RStudio, or like I have to open my Visual Studio Code, or like Sublime or Atom or whatever, and like, oh no, now I have to use this keystroke, or like, oh, actually my editor or my IDE misunderstood what file I'm working, what language I'm currently in. Like Sublime Text and LaTeX, right? Like the text processing language LaTeX just completely kills me because it always gets the languages wrong. Like obviously this is a user error. Like obviously it works, but I'm messing it up. Sorry, this is total tangent. Let me not bash on Sublime. I love Sublime. Anyways. What am I saying? So yeah, I mean, super conveniently, we've just switched to a new environment without actually switching to a new environment, because it's like, it doesn't really matter. It's like I have a text file in both cases, and in both cases, I just want to take this text file and run it through whatever program or whatever interpreter I currently want to use, right? None of these are compiled. Now, let me show you something else that at least I find pretty cool. Okay, so in R, we might plot stuff, for example. So let's put this data, like we might plot something to a PDF, right? So let's put this in a, let's call it df. So we'll put that in a data frame, or in a variable that we call df, and let's just say plot df, and let's say maybe like the x label is a. Actually, I think we'll get that roughly. So whatever. And then let me actually, yes, okay. So that'll be fine, right? It's like R has a default way of dealing with of where it will plot when you ask it to plot, right? So what it will do is that it will create a PDF in the folder like next to the file that you're currently running. Okay, so if we hit Command L again, which is the keystroke that we bound, we'll run this through R script, right? Or we'll run this R script through R, right? So let's do that. I've run it. Notice now, we didn't actually get any output. Let's think about that. Ah, okay, sorry. That's because I added this part, right? So I didn't actually sort of implicitly print df by saying, oops, by saying df. So let me run it again now. Now you can see we get df. So we're first printing this to screen. Like that's the same thing as just saying print df. And then we're plotting the df, right? We're plotting that to file. Let me show you that that actually works, right? So if I background this, I'll say ls here. Now you can see we have another thing. We have the main RB file that we had before, and then we have the script R file, right? That's what we had before. But now we also have rplots.pdf, right? So if I actually open this file, rplots.pdf, right? Whoa, whew, almost kicked the mouse off the table. That's that file. Now, I'm not saying it's a sync-tech error, no file. What happened here? Not sure. Probably I have some problem with that PDF file, but never mind. Let me clear the screen. Okay, so now we're actually looking at that PDF, right? Here's some even more cool stuff. Okay, I don't really know how this works on Windows. I know that it works on It works on Mac, but not as conveniently. But maybe there are other ways. Like it works with the default PDF viewer preview, but you can probably use something else on Mac, like Skim, for example, in order to get it to auto-update. So what I'm trying to say is that if I update this now with more data, so let's say we have Jazz, and then we have like Fresh Prince also. So Fresh Prince has an age of, I don't know, like maybe he's probably not 60. Let's say he's 50, okay? So we've updated with more data. Let me hit the keystroke in order to run this file, right? Or run this this program through R, and then immediately, right, as it completes, you can see that this file was actually updated, right? Let me remove a bunch of people from here, and then look at the PDF, right? I'm hitting the keystroke. The PDF is updated, right? So I don't even have to do anything. So. You know how there are all these complicated build systems for front-end development that sort of watches your directory, like Gulp or Grunt, or they're like Webpack, or I don't know, like there's all this sort of these layers of complexity with config files and all of that stuff. Most of the time you just don't need them, right? It's like, well, actually what I'm doing is that I'm just constructing this PDF and then I'm looking at it. Right? So like, how hard can that be? Of course you can use watch systems, right? And all that stuff. I'm not at all bashing watchers. Like, watchers are fantastic for sure, but it's just I'm saying, like, if you don't need complexity, don't introduce complexity. Like, introduce complexity when your scenario actually like suggests the need for it. And of course here in R we could specify that this output should be written into another directory, for example, so that we wouldn't get this file like next to our source files here, right? So maybe we would have like one directory called source and then another directory called let's say output, or like, what was it, like destination? No, but build, right? Or something like that, or like plots, let's say, right? Not plot, I meant to say plots. So, yikes, big fonts, right? So then we have the source directory and we have the plots directory. So maybe we would put the scripts file in the source directory and we'd sort of write all of the output to the plots directory. But anyways, like again, like if your scenario actually demands that level of complication. But if it doesn't, I mean, whatever. It's like just keep the feedback loop very quick, right? And so yeah, I'm not gonna dig more into R because I would get excited and talk about R instead, so that's not good. Yes, where were we? We looked at R. Okay, one final example like this. I want to talk about C#. If you're not interested in a compiled language, or if you're like, I get it, okay, whatever, let's move on, feel free to skip forward, right? But let's talk about C# as well. So let's say, let's make a new file, right? I'm not even gonna quit Vim this time, right? It's like, who cares, right? I'm just gonna create a file called program.cs. And let's see if I can get syntax correct for constructing like a minimal C# file, right? Also, I hope I have mono installed on this system. Possibly I don't have mono installed on this system. This will be sort of a, let's see if this works. Okay, so what is this? Like, I'll construct a public static. Maybe it doesn't even have to be public, whatever. Public static class, class called program. Oh my god. Okay, and then there's a public static void main. Maybe that should, yeah, okay, that could be like, and then we'll just do something like console write line hello world. Right, something like that. It's using system, it's a static class, and it's a static main, right? Something like that. I guess that would sort of qualify as a C# program. Okay, let me background this. We're back in the terminal. Let's clear. Let's do ls, and you can see, okay, I have program.cs here. So how do we compile that? Well, we compile that. I guess I have mono. I really hope I have mono. Whew, I have mono. Okay, so we no, that's for running it. GMCS, right? No. MCS? Yes. Okay. Yes, C# compiler. Okay. Whew. I was totally sweating there. Okay, so we have the program.cs file, right? I have a C# compiler, so I'll just say MCS, and I'll pass program.cs, right? Oh, by the way, sorry, somebody enlightened me to the fact that like Microsoft actually distributes a C# compiler for Linux. I'm sorry, I didn't know, so I haven't bothered about installing all of that stuff. I just, of old habit, keep using mono, but whatever. So if I pass the program file to MCS, it will compile it. Since it's silent, we have no errors, right? So let me just say ls again to see if there's any change, right? And now you can see actually we have a program.exe file. Let me just make sure that that's executable, right? We can see it's actually executable here as well. Okay, so we have that program.exe file, but because I'm on a Linux system, I can't just say sort of program.exe. I have to pass that to mono. So mono program.exe, right? So we've compiled the file, and now we want to run the file, and then you can see we get hello world out. Cool, right? Or I mean, it's not cool. It's like, okay, trivial, right? But convenient if we think about what we want to do in Vim, right? So what that means, if we try to do that in one step, what that means is that we want to say, well, pass the file program.cs to the compiler, and then if that was successful, run the resulting exe file through mono, right? So let's do both of those. Then it's first compiling, and then it's spitting, and then it's running that file, right? Let's introduce some syntax errors, right? So if I just put this sort of crappy string in the middle of the program, this shouldn't be a valid program anymore, right? So if I try to do the same thing again, pass it to the compiler, and then run the resulting exe file through mono, then we now get a compilation error, and notice that it's not running the old file. Let's actually try this at once. What if I would do or? think it's this syntax. Yes, so notice here that we're getting hello world. So we're running the program anyway, and this is pretty dangerous unless you're sort of very careful, or if your program sort of spits out lots of output, right? Because we could fail to notice that we have a bunch of errors here, right? But anyways, okay, so let's remove the syntax error, and now let's map a keystroke. So we'll map a keystroke to doing exactly the same thing, right? Map, comma L, I'll use the same keystroke because it's convenient. Colon, I want to run a command. Bang, because I want to send something to the terminal. The first thing I want to do is I'm going to say mcs compile the current file, right? Let me type these out specifically now, and then we'll figure out how to do it sort of more dynamically, right? Program.cs, and if that's successful, then I want to by the way, you could also, like, let me just mention that you could also do pipes here, of course. Like, you could say, like, well, take this current file and then pipe it into, like, grep or whatever. Like, you could, anything. I mean, it's command line, right? Again, like, this is the part that's fantastic. Okay, so you do and then we pass the resulting exe program, program.exe, that file through to mono. And then we'll pass carriage return, right? Okay, let's make sure that that mapping exists. I'll say map, comma L. Okay, it seems like we have that mapping. Let me now press that keystroke or that combination, right? Comma L. It's running the file, right? But first it's compiling. Let's make sure it's compiling. So let's introduce a syntax error. Let's save, and then let's hit the keystroke again. Now we get the syntax error, right? Actually, let's clear the screen. Let's change the mapping. So we clear the screen here in the beginning as well. So clear and then we'll continue. Okay, clear, compile, run. I hit the keystroke. Now we have the syntax error on top of the screen here. Fantastic, right? Let's remove the syntax error, save. Now that works. I think, let's think about this. How could so I don't ever, I think I mentioned this in the last video. I think you could also automatically save the file. I'm not entirely sure what this would maybe be like this, right? I would just map first, :W, and then without specifying a space, I would just send the rest of the keystrokes. Actually, sorry, :W, and then carriage return, and then : bang, and all that rest stuff. The rest of that stuff. Let's try that out. So does that still work if I press comma L now? Yeah, that still works. And if I introduce a syntax error without saving, right? I'm not saving. I'm just leaving insert mode. I haven't saved. Notice when I save, it does. Yeah, I'll show you later. Okay, I haven't saved. And I'll just say comma L. Yes, right? So it automatically saved the file, right? Because otherwise we wouldn't get the syntax error, right? So notice that you can also, like, you could set multiple commands like this. I'm just saying :W for W is saved, by the way, right? Right, probably. And then the rest of the command, right? So again, like, just think about what you would intuitively do, like whatever keystrokes you would hit, and that's probably correct. Okay, let me actually, I don't really like that behavior, actually, because I want to be in full control of when I save the file, right? So I tend to not do this. So let me actually remove that. And then let's remove the syntax error. And I was going to show you that when you save a file, it looks like this. It says in the bottom here, program.cs, right? Because that's the file we wrote, right? So it's written. So that's the evidence that I didn't save it sort of sneakily just a moment ago. Okay, now what I want to figure out, what I want to solve is that, let's say now we have this file, right? But let's open up another file. Let's say that's program.cs, but then let's say we have like this cool class. Actually, let's just do program2.cs, right? Oops. Open up a file program2.cs, right? Let me actually just copy this stuff. Yeah, I could have done that more smoothly, but whatever. So now we have these two files, program and program2cs. I'll save that file, right? Let's actually call this, oops, so this needs to be, what am I doing? What am I doing? This needs to be called program2, and this, so let's say hello from program2, right? And then here we say, let's say hello from program1, okay? So we have program2 and we have program1. Now, if I'm sort of focused on program1 and I press the keystroke, then I'll get hello from program1 up here. Okay, that's fine. But if I shift focus to program2, well, it's shift focus to program2. I'm just sort of shifting focus to another file. And we happen to use splits now, but it doesn't matter that we're using splits. Like I'm just using that for the sake of the example, right? It's like you might find yourself in a scenario where you are where you have these anyways, you'll see what I mean. What I mean is that we've hard-coded a file name, right? So you have program 1 and you have program 2. Okay, so when I'm focused on this file and I press the keystroke, the problem is that we're still running program 1, right? Because the mapping that we constructed explicitly say run or pass program.cs to this particular compiler and then run program.exe through mono, right? But that's not what we want to do. We want to actually take this particular file. The problem is this. Okay, if I do this, let me not map this. Let me just invoke the command. Let me close program 1, so we're only looking at program 2 now. So if I run a command and I'll say bang, I'm not mapping anything. I'm just running a command and I'm sending it to the terminal from Vim, right? If I say echo, right, echo from bash, and I'll say echo percentage sign. Remember, percentage sign is what we used before in Ruby in order to map to the current file name, or to get expand the current file name. If I say that, if I pass that, you'll see I get this program2.cs. So actually, let me do exactly the same thing, but I'll just clear first. So clear, and then I'll say echo that, right? So you see, we get program2.cs out. The issue is, actually, maybe I should use horizontals. Yeah, both of these look like crap. I'm sorry, splits don't really lend themselves too well when you have this huge, sorry, this sort of huge font size. Okay, so if I'm in program 1 and I'll do exactly the same thing, I'll send a command, like I'll say bang in order to send a command to the terminal. I'll clear the screen and then I'll echo a percentage sign, which is the name of this file. Then you can see we get program.cs, right? So actually, let's keep these splits up. Sorry about this very huge font size. So if I send that from, sorry, this is program.cs. Let me open up program2.cs. So if I send it from program 2, sorry, I pressed the, see, this is how comma L is sort of ingrained in my brain, right? It's like I just intuitively pressed that because like my brain was thinking that, oh, well, you want something in the terminal, you probably want to press comma L, right? Because that, like, I use that all the time. But what we wanted to do is this. We wanted to say clear and then echo the percentage sign, which is this file, right? Then we get program2.cs, and in program CS, if we do that, then we get program CS. So I should probably rename this file to program1.cs for this to make a bit more sense, right? Program1. Yeah, so here, wait, what did I do? Program. When in doubt, just reopen. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to open 2, I meant to open 1. Much confusion. Program.cs can't be. Much confusion. I'm just quitting Vim, clearing ls. We have program1.cs, program2.cs. Let's go into Vim. Let's open program1.cs. Let's open program2.cs. If I say echo, actually, if I try to compile program 1, I need to remap now because I closed Vim. So what we did was that we cleared and then we said pass I'm so stupid. Okay. The problem was, of course, that we had hard-coded our mapping. This was user error, okay? There was not a problem, and I didn't really need to restart Vim or anything like that. It's just that the mapping that we had done, this is the problem of hard-coding, right? Was like this. We said first compile program.cs and then pass program.exe through mono, right? That doesn't work because we renamed the file to program1. So if I try to run that, that's not going to work. It's going to say, well, I can't find program.cs. This is why I was totally confused. I thought it was like some kind of cache error or something like this. This is why I restarted. So what we wanted is program1.cs and program1.exe, right? Run that, that works, right? But what I wanted to show is that that doesn't work when we have a focus on program 2. If we hit that keystroke, we're still going to run program 1, right? Because we are hard coding program 1. Now, that's one part of the error. The second part of the error, or not the error, but the situation that we're trying to solve here is that if I echo the current file name, the issue is that it's going to include this .cs, right? So that's fine for the first part of this mapping that we want to do. Because check this out, we can change, of course, because that's the same thing as for R script or for Ruby or like for an interpreted language where you don't have this sort of build, or yeah, compile and then run, here we can say percentage sign, because it's like we just want to compile the current file. But then which file we run, that's a different story, right? So if we change it to that, we change it to using percentage sign in the first end. And if I here then say hit L to run program 1, you can see it actually works. It compiles the program and it runs program 1. And you can see it compiles because if I introduce an error here, save that, and then run it, you can see it crashes, right? Because we have a compilation error. Let me remove that. Let's save and let's run it again. You can see it works. Okay, now let's jump over to program 2. Okay, so in program 2, actually, I'm realizing left and right. Sorry, I should have said let's jump over to program 2. Here, if I hit the keystroke, if I hit L now, we're still getting hello from program 1, right? But the sort of confusing part is that we're actually running the local file. So if I introduce a syntax error here and save that, right, and then run, I actually get syntax errors from program 2 because we're compiling program 2, right, rather than program 1. And then, yeah, and we're not running program 2. So if I remove that, right, then we can compile, but then we're still running program 1. So like, even potentially more confusing is if I introduce a syntax error in program 1 and save that, and then go over to program 2 and then run program 2, I seem to sort of still get some output, and that's very confusing, right? Because it's like, well, there is no compilation error. There seems to be like no compilation error in program 1, but that's not true. It's just that there's no compilation error in program 2, but we're compiling program 2, but looking at the output of program 1. But anyways, okay, I think I made this overly complicated. What we need to do is essentially we need to use file modifiers. So in order to restructure this mapping, instead of just saying percentage sign, what we can do is we can use file modifiers such as :h, for example. So let's actually, I can't even remember what is :h, right? Actually, can I expand like that? I think we learned that before. No, okay, yeah, that. Not sure how to do that. So whatever. If I echo percentage :h, for example, you can see, was it :h? That seems to not be the correct, because I just got dot. That is very confusing. Okay, let's go into the help. Percentage sign :h. I believe it's h. Yeah, the file name modifiers can be, so let me just mention, what I'm looking for is that, I mean, what the compiler does is that when we compile something.cs, it's going to spit out the same first name and then .exe, right? But without the .cs part, without the C# part. So we're trying to figure out how to, given a file, get the name without the extension. So we want to have program 1 or program 2 and not program 1.cs and program 2.cs. So so here you can see, okay, so file name modifiers, that's the section that we're at, and then here you can see, okay, so these modifiers can be given, right? You have :p, for example, that makes the file name a full path. So yeah, actually, like when we were at program 1, if we say echo percentage sign, you can see actually we just get program 1.cs. But if we want the absolute path, then we say :p. So percentage sign :p. Enter, that actually gives us the full path, right? What more? I think we were actually looking for h. Yes, I mean, we were looking for h. Didn't I say h before? Did I say e before? No, I said h. So I am superly confused about why that didn't work. If I echo just h, what about from here? How majorly confusing. Because h is like the head of the file name, right? The last component and any separators removed. Cannot be used with e. What is e? :e is the extension, right? So if I say echo $, not :h, :e, then I get cs here, right? And same thing in the other one. E for extension, then I get cs, and I'm very confused about why I don't get h. Ooh, is it because something like this? No. Okay. I don't know. Let's not think about it. Because let's just see if this actually works anyway. The way we should have mapped it then is essentially this, right? here we can say, here like in the compilation step, we can actually say percentage sign because we want the whole file name including the extension. But in the compilation, we need to specify that it's .exe. So then we need to say percentage sign, colon, h, and then .exe. Right? It's like the same file name, but the same head of the file without the extension, but then append this particular extension to it. Let's try that. Cannot, no, it actually doesn't work. Okay, we still get this crazy dot. I'm so confused. I do this also so often, so I'm very confused about why this doesn't work. Whoa, sorry, I opened, I opened the exe file. Program1.cs. Actually, sorry, program.exe is not relevant anymore because we're using program 1 and program 2, so let me just remove that so we won't accidentally get confused. Why didn't this work? Like, how do I expand? Oof, sorry, there is a keystroke to expand a command, but I can't remember it. I mean, we could do Control R and then percentage, but I want to do percentage H now, so I don't really know how to, because I can't sort of expand it like that, right? No, that's actually with registers. Anyways, so I am very confused about why doesn't this just gives me dot, right? What if I ask for the absolute and then the head of the file? Can I do that? What was that? P? CSH, but then it just appended H. Aha, sorry, maybe I need to express multiple ones like that. Maps. No, but then it gives me the head without program 1. This is absurd. What if I go to the Ruby file, sorry, main.ruby or RB, if I say echo percentage H here, I'm still getting only dot. I think we're gonna have to do a range check on this one. This is very confusing. I've actually never hit this before. Actually, let's go file name modifiers. So let's read H again. Did it say anything more? Cannot be used with E. Oh, okay, so it cannot be used with E. That's what they said. R or T. Wait, there's also tail of the file name. What is that? But that should be like the file name, I guess. Like, so if we say echo T, yeah, that's the file name. Like if you have a full extension, that just gives you the file name. Then there's the root. The last extension removed. Wait, does that work? Ooh, okay. Yikes, very confusing. If somebody knows why this is, and because I've been using :H since like forever, like since, not day one, but like since I learned about file modifiers, I've used that on Mac. And I don't think I've ever compiled C#. Maybe I have on Linux. So I'm just wondering about whether that's a thing. Maybe that's something to do with the operating system. Anyways, if you have an explanation for why H didn't work, why H gives me dot, like period, instead of the actual file name or the actual head of the file, please let me know. That would be great to know. I'm super confused. So there was R, and then I just wanted to figure out one last thing, which was that if what was the full, yikes, T cannot be used with, yeah, okay, no, but E is extension. Was R the whole thing? No, P. Okay, P for full path, I guess. So what we looked at now was R. So can you do :P and then :R? Right. So that would give me the full path to this particular file. Like, let's say if your compiler requires an absolute path, or like if it's actually, whatever, I mean, many times it's actually just easier to pass it an absolute path, but that gives you the absolute path without the extension. Okay, so dudes, if I knew, I would tell you. So for some reason now I need to use :R instead, and possibly I've been using :H wrong all my life, but whatever. That's life. So now if we have program 1, let's just rewrite this mapping and then we'll wrap this up. So I'll compile the current file and then we'll pass not :H, so we'll pass %, which is this current file, but then we'll modify that by saying, ooh, what was it, R? Was it? I guess, :R, and then .exe, right? In order to get like the last, or the not the head of the file then, but like this, the file name without the extension. Let's see if that was the, actually, was it :R? Yes, okay, phew. So let's make that mapping, right? Let's run that mapping, let's see if it works. Seems to work, right? Because we get hello from program 1. Let's introduce a syntax error, let's save, and then let's run that again. We get a syntax error, right? Because we've introduced a syntax error. Very good. Okay, let's remove that. Let's run again. We get hello from program 1. Okay, let's now open program 2. All right, we're in program 2. Let's run it and see if we get hello from program 2. We do. Hello from program 2, right? So now we have a better mapping because this mapping is based on this actual file, right? And then if you, let's think about this. Yeah, if we introduce a syntax error, sorry, I'm getting a bit tired, and we'll save that and we'll run that, then you get a syntax error, right? So it seems we've been compiling the correct file. And if I remove that, save it, run again, it's fine. Okay, so like, again, now you can actually write competent C# applications without having to worry about, what is that called? Xamarin Studio or something like that if you're on Linux, or Visual Studio. I mean, yes, I know now there is Visual Studio Code, but like back in the days there wasn't, and this was fantastic, right? Because you didn't have to deal with these silly IDEs. But anyways, still, I'd gladly use Vim if I can use Vim. And oof, there was one thing I wanted to tell you, which was that yes, so again, these modifiers are actually pretty darn convenient, right? So like we had this main.rb file, right? Let's say, whoops, what did I do now? Let's say that we have a split here, and we have, let's say maybe this wasn't main. Let's rename this to say, actually let's say that's yeah, but let's rename this to, let's say like I don't know, like person.rb, right? So this is a class that sort of constructs a person, right? And whatever. And then we have another file which is person_spec.rb, right? So spec is what did I do now? person_spec.rb, whatever. So what I should have done is, let's go back, I should have saved it into person_spec.rb. Yeah, but then I've loaded that. How silly. So I'll save this into person_spec.rb. But then I need, much confusion. Okay, so now we have a file called, actually that should be lowercase, person_rb. Yeah, so we have a file called person_rb, that's down here in the bottom, person.rb, and then we have person_spec.rb, right? And here it would be like runs a bunch of, oh my god, tests, right? So we have a spec file, we have a test file, and then we have an actual file that we want to build. Like, and let's say you're in this sort of TDD loop where you're sort of writing some tests and then writing some code and then writing some tests and then writing some code. It was actually a very long time since I did any TDD, but like, let's just say, right, the thing that I want to point out is that this is sort of a structured example, much like the compile example, right, where it's like you have one file. There's a convention, right? In the compilation, there was a convention that you compile a file, and that file is the file name.cs. And then when that's compiled, you get an output, and that output is called the file name, or the first part of the file name program, and then .exe, right? So then you can sort of map that easily because it's always going to be the same, unless you change it, right? And like, unless you configure it, or unless you have multiple files or whatever. But here it's the same thing. It's like, well, I have this class that I want to test, and it's called something.rb, and then my test is called whatever that thing was called, _spec.rb, right? So then we could do the same thing. Let's say, let's actually just say puts here, let's say we output, this is hello from implementation, let's say, right? That's hello from the implementation file. And then here we'll just say, actually runs tests, right? Runs tests, we'll say here, tests. And then here we will say runs file or whatever, right? Yes, actually, whatever. Okay, and let's save both of these files. And then we can map a keystroke, right? Let's map the same keystroke. Let's say -L, or comma L to sending Ruby, this particular file to Ruby, right? Okay, comma L, actually, sorry, let's clear the screen first as well. Clear, and then run the file. Okay, I'll hit the keystroke. You can see it says runs the file, runs the file, it should say. Okay, anyways. Runs the file, okay? And then I'll jump over here. The problem here is, of course, that we would say runs, if I hit, yeah, okay, that's silly. Yeah, okay, my example totally broke down because I could just jump over and run this file. The problem is that if this was actually RSpec, then you wouldn't want to run this through Ruby, you would want to run this through RSpec. So it'd be slightly more complicated. So now I'm just going to pretend that this is RSpec instead of actually getting into RSpec because it's been a while, and I'll probably forget it and I'll waste both of our times. But what you could do is you could map another keystroke, right? So like, let's say you're in this file, and then you would map another keystroke, and then you would say RSpec, and then you would say this particular file, but not this particular file, rather just the file name, right? Or the head part, and then we'll say underscore spec.rb, right? And then we'll pass carriage return. And now we don't actually want to do RSpec because it's not an RSpec file. I mean, we can pass it to RSpec. We'll see what happens, right? Let's try this out. Oops. Did I do something incorrect? Oh, sorry, I forgot a colon here. So notice it's just literally taking whatever you're asking it to map. So I'll press comma period. And actually, so I don't even have RSpec installed, right? So, you know, whatever. But let's change that to Ruby just for the sake of the example. So notice how my focus stays here in the implementation file rather than the test file. If I press comma L, right, I'll run the file. But if I press comma period, I'll run the tests. Actually, that didn't clear the screen, so let's maybe clear the screen here as well. Clear. And then Ruby, right? Comma L runs the file. Actually, I can actually hit it right from here, right? Comma period runs the tests, right? So then it's like, well, actually, like, let's say I've been writing the tests, or I've been hacking on the implementation, and I'll just press run the test, right? Oh, okay, actually the test passed. Okay, fine. Okay, let's run the implementation. Boom. Oh, okay, nice. Now I can see the actual output from the implementation, or something like that. You know, I don't know, like whatever. And again, this is a contrived scenario because then it's like, well, now why would I want to run both of them while I'm in the implementation file? Maybe I actually want to run like just or maybe I want, like if I'm doing TDD, maybe I want to run the file from the test end or something like that. But maybe the scenario is that this isn't sort of a TDD loop scenario. It's more like, well, you have one key mapping or one keys combination that you hit in order to run the spec file of whatever thing that you currently have. Actually, maybe this is a better mapping. Let's do this. And then we'll end. Okay, maybe this is a better mapping. Map, I think actually maybe, again, Gary Bernard, this, yeah, I think maybe he's the one who, it's like, in the back of my mind, he learned this. Anyways, let's change the mapping. We have this mapping now for comma period. Let's skip that. Let's just say, for comma period, I want to map this. Colon E for open up the file, right? Open up the file. And then I'll open up the current file, but I'll use the R modifier to just get like only the first part, and then say underscore and then spec.rb, right? And actually, of course, this would actually be in a spec directory most probably, so you would need some more, like you would add the path of whatever convention you have. But now, since we have both of them in the same location, I can just pass carriage return after that. So now if I press comma E or comma period, it opened up the test file, right? It was not too obvious maybe, but let me just put this comment here. This is the test file, right? I'll say that. And let's jump back. So this is the implementation file. I'll just hit comma period. Boom, we're in the test file, right? And that works for any file, right? So it's like, let's say we have animal.rb, and let's save that, and then we have animalspec.rb, right? So let's say, let me add a comment here, animal spec file, right? Let's save that. And let's go back to animal RB. If I now press comma period, I'm in the spec file of animal, right? Because that's the convention. It's like, the convention is you have underscore spec, and then that's the test file. So now we can just jump to that. And of course you could, I can't remember how to do that, but it'd be trivial to figure out. You could open that in a split. So maybe instead of saying E, I guess maybe we would say vertical split like this. Let's try that. Maybe I'm wrong. Oops, sorry, now I opened spec because I was in the spec file. So yeah, I mean, you could add some more fail-safes to this. But now I'm in person RB, and I'll press the keystroke comma period. Yes, and that works, right? So it's like, well, now we opened up the test file here on the left, and our original file is now on the right. So actually, I really don't like this behavior where the new file that you opened opens up on the left, and I would want that to open on the right, and you can absolutely figure out how to do that, but let's not do that now. The last thing I want to show you is that we've now talked about map, but there is so much more than just map, right? This is probably the way I should have begun this, and I wanted to talk about the documentation, and that's what my intention was when I said let's start by talking about what I tend to use map for, but we've gone way too long. So if you say help map, help::map, you'll end up in the documentation, and check this out, right? Here are a bunch of different map commands that you can run. Let me make this a bit smaller. You can run, whoops, wait, let me, like this, okay. So I'm reading in the beginning of the line here, right? You can run map, you can run normal, like nm, vm, xm, smap, omap, map period, map bang, imap, so forth and so forth and so forth, right? And these essentially correspond to different modes of mapping, right? So we've only talked about normal mode mapping, right? Notice how when I was in insert mode and I was writing something, I exited insert mode, and then I hit the keystroke that we mapped something to. But you can also map stuff in insert mode. So it's like, but that's, I mean, you have to be careful, and I tend to simply not do that because that's not the way I'm using Vim. Like, maybe later, I don't know, like maybe further down my path. But now I'm just sort of a simple man, right? So I tend to map stuff in normal mode, but you can map stuff in insert mode, so that, like, let's say you're working with HTML and you are typing out HTML and you want to build some sort of auto-completion stuff. Now, you don't have to do that, right? Because people have already built lots of these plugins, and like there's Emmet for auto-completion in HTML. Wait, Emmet? Yeah, maybe. There isn't a plugin for auto-completion in HTML and like all that stuff. Like there's so many plugins. But anyways, you might find yourself wanting to map something in insert mode. So it's like, let's say you have this strange symbol that's located oddly on your keyboard. Then you can create an insert mode mapping such that when you're in insert mode and you hit some particular combination, you get that key, right? Or whatever, like Unicode characters or whatever, right? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say Unicode characters. I meant to say emojis. But yeah, this is actually pretty important, right? We should say, here's a section on map commands, right? So they're blah, blah, blah. You can also see map overview. We should look at this, right? But here's the general syntax. And this is what we've looked at, right? There's left-hand side and right-hand side. So you say :map, and then you have something on the left-hand side, and then you have something on the right-hand side. And you map whatever's on the left-hand side to whatever's on the right-hand side. And here are all the sort of the first section of stuff. And then here's the second section of stuff, and that section of stuff, whatever, says that here you disallow recursive mappings, right? So think about this. What happens if you map, like, let's say the keystroke A to the keystroke B, but then you map the keystroke B to the keystroke C? Like, is it transitive? Is the word right? So does that mean that A maps to C, or does that mean that A maps to B? Right? Because if A maps to B and B maps to C, then A should map to C, right? But not if you use no remap, right? Or I mean, again, like, think about this, bracket notation is shorthand, right? So it's like if you say :no, that means that you're saying no remap, right? But you could also say no remap. But anyways, that's what the no remap is for, right? Or that section of different commands. And then you have removing. So we didn't do this, right? But like we mapped, I think we still have it mapped, right? If I say map, L, you can see, yeah, it's saying clear and then run through Ruby. So we could unmap that. So we could say unmap, comma L, right? And then if I run that, supposedly we've now unmapped. So if I ask and I say just map and then comma L, no mapping found, right? So we've now unmapped it. You can unmap a whole bunch of stuff, right? I think there's even something here where you can unmap everything. But anyways, we'll get to that, right? But yeah, here. So here, if you don't have a left-hand side, notice, right? Notice here we had only a left-hand side when we unmapped. I'm referring to these, right? It's like the arguments, right? We only had a left-hand side, and here we have a left-hand side and a right-hand side for both mapping and for no remapping, right? Or no mapping, maybe I should call it. And here for clearing, we simply have no left-hand side or no right-hand side. We would just say like map C for clearing everything that's being mapped. I don't really want to run that because I'm not entirely sure what I have mapped. That would make it tricky for me to keep navigating. And then you have this thing, right? The last section where, or it's actually not the last section, but this section that lists, right? This lists a bunch of maps. And this is, again, like when we talked about before, if I just say map, we'll get a list of all the maps that I have currently now in memory, right? And if I say IMAP, I guess I would get all the insert mode mappings, right? And here we can actually see emmet, right? I don't actually use emmet, so there's a bunch of stuff here I want to remove, but I haven't really gotten around to it. But yeah, so those are the mappings that exist in insert mode, like in essentially map mode -I, right? Or the map mode that's called map mode -I. And then here, what's this last section? Key sequences starting with left-hand side. List the key mappings. Yeah, okay, yeah, so list key mappings that start with, right? So if I say map and then comma, I guess, yeah, then I would get all the mappings that start with comma, right? Oops. Let's go back to help map, and then let's jump down. We were down here somewhere, right? And did we do, yes, right? So I listed everything that starts with comma, but you could like list everything that starts with A or whatever. But then you can see it says, okay, well, there was no mapping found for that. And yes, there are a bunch of more stuff, I guess, right? And there are more, yeah, this is interesting, right? It's like you can have ambiguous mappings in Vim, but you can't have them in VI, but so you can map something to AA, and then you can map something else to AAA to AAA, but that means that as long as it's ambiguous, you have to press the next key in order for Vim to figure out which mapping you're actually talking about, but whatever. And then here, there's actually like, there's a new section, so it's not a completely new section, but anyways, let's stop reading the documentation, except I just want to show you this particular thing. They said here, they said see also map overview. So let's jump to map overview. Here you can see this is essentially the same, or not the same stuff, but it's an overview of the different modes, right? So if you say map or no remap or unmap, then you're talking about normal mode, visual mode, select mode, and operator pending mode, right? And so forth, right? You have these different modes, right? So which did we use as well? We used insert, right? So here, no, we used IMAP, right? So IMAP is only for insert mode, but you could use LMAP, right? Which is like something that is active both in insert mode, command line mode, and in this language argument mode, which I don't even know what it is, right? But and then I mean, when I was looking through this before, I also realized you can also have terminal jobs, and I haven't actually looked at this. Oh, now I can't remember how to. Yeah, okay, some other time. You can actually run a terminal inside of Vim, like in a split inside of Vim, instead of doing yeah, this is not relevant for now. Let's wait. I started the thought. Terminal. No, what am I doing? Wait, help. Terminal, maybe. Yeah, you just say terminal. Does that work? Like if I just say terminal. Yeah, okay, so obviously my my bash RC file was not sort of adapted for being ran inside of Vim, right? But this is bash, right? It's like we now actually have a terminal inside of Vim. I've actually never used this, right? Because I tend to always do this thing that we talked about before, where I sort of drop down. Oh, wait, how do I actually can I? Yeah, so so where I tend to drop down, right? We're backgrounding Vim and then jump back up. But like you can do all kinds of advanced stuff. And also like as I alluded to last time, I tend to use Tmux whenever I want to split like that instead. So I open up Tmux and then I open up, let's say, a split, and then I have a terminal here in the right hand side, for example, right? So I could keep like some tests running or whatever, and then I can open up Vim here on the or I said left hand side, but I meant right hand side. But then and then I can open up Vim here on the left hand side. So this is normally the way I tend to do the stuff if I ever use splits, right? But like 99% of the times I simply don't use splits, right? I just tend to do, or sorry, splits all the time. Sorry, splits in terms of Vim, like every day, but not terminal splits, like having a terminal up at the same time. I just find it extremely simpler just to map a keystroke and then jumping up and down. Actually, I think what we should look at in another video. Oh my goodness, this video is so long, I have to cut it. Okay, let's cut this out. But what we should look at in another video is that if you have these splits in, for example, Tmux, you can actually send keystrokes to different panel in Tmux from Vim, which is also pretty cool, right? Because then it's like you can have two splits, and then you can send the output of your command from the current split into this other split in Tmux, right? So then it's like you can compile and run your file in this other part of the screen, and then you keep developing in your own part of the screen. But in my mind, this is all overkill, right? It's like, and it's not the point where I would say, oh, at this point it's better to switch to an ID. No, it's simply not better to switch to an ID, in my humble subjective opinion. But at this point, I would just ask myself whether it's actually worth the trouble, whether I really actually want to look at both these things at the same time. And again, as I mentioned in another video, or did I mention this? But probably I would be more positive towards that kind of thing if I would actually use an ultra-wide screen, for example, where I would feel that there's a lot of horizontal screen real estate. Then that might actually probably really make sense. But I tend to use pretty big font sizes, and then just like, oh, let me just drop down, look at the stuff I need to look at, and then let's jump back up. Like, keep it simple, man. Anyways, I think let's drop this here. If you have any additions, please do feel free to drop something in the comments. And if you have any questions or concerns or comments, drop them in the comments. It was a long video, and I will see you in the next one.